Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. In the description below, there's a link to a video which is the Ultimate Reloader's 10-shot expanded load development with 6.5 Creedmoor. And you'll find this chart in there. And in this study, Gavin Tube loaded 5 rounds each with charge weights ranging from 39.1 grains to 40.9 grains. And he shot 10 5-shot groups of each of these at each charge weight, and he checked the velocity on these. And what he found is that there are nodes where you can increase the charge weight, but the velocity doesn't change very much. So there are several like here, 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 and here. And of course, on some of these, there's a very tight standard deviation in these rounds. So you see here, for example, at 40.3, he's got a 4.3 standard deviation. So the idea here is that if you're loading in between here, you can be off a little bit on your charge weight, and it's not going to have much of an effect on your velocity. I'm going back to the drawing board, and instead of loading on those nodes, because it was fairly stable between here and here, I'm going to go in the middle of those nodes, and I'm going to load 39.4, 39.8, 40.2, 40.6, and there's not one shown over here, but I'm going in 0.4 of a grain increments, so I'm going to go ahead and jump up another 0.4 of a grain over here to 41. And so I'm loading 10 shots of each of those, and we're going to shoot 5 10-shot groups, and then we're going to measure those for the extreme spread. And we're also going to measure the mean radius as well and see how these perform. All right, welcome back. Today we're at the Georgia Gun Club 100-yard indoor rifle range, and I'm shooting my Socko 6.5 Creedmoor. I'll be shooting charges from 39.4 grains to 41 grains. I'll be shooting 5 10-shot groups at these different charge weights, and then we will compare those. We will analyze them, we'll look at the extreme spread, and we will also calculate the mean radius to see how these groups are performing. So you're welcome to enjoy the music while I fast forward through my shooting, or you can skip forward about 1.5 minutes to the results that follow. Shooting at 100 yards. All right, some of these look pretty good. Let's bring them in and take a look. Okay, this was our barrel warming group. This is 4 shots. We had 3 shots clustered together and 1 off by itself. And so before I started my shooting, I adjusted the scope 1 click to the left. So these are all 10-shot groups. Here, these are all clustered together right there under an inch with a flyer off to the side. We increase it, that's at 39.4. We increase the charge to 39.8. They're a little more scattered. At 40.2, they're still shooting very similarly. You go to 40.6, the group tightens up a bit. So we've got, again, these are 10 shots, and we have, it looks like 7 right here clustered together touching. And then at 41 grains, we have 9 out of 10 touching with 1 off to the right. That was my last shot. So in any event, we will take these home. We will measure them. We'll look at the extreme spread, and I will use the Hornady ballistics app to check for the mean radius. And I will share the results with you here in just a minute. So here at the first group, we've got a charge weight of 39.4 grains with an estimated velocity of 2,575 feet per second. The group size was 1.20 because we had a flyer right here, and when you measure the extreme spread, you get a 1.20 group size. But the mean radius is 0.33. And if you look at the photograph that I'm inserting here on the left, you see a white X in the center of that group. Now I drew a line here and here, and where those 2 points intersect, that's the average center of that group. And so what mean radius does is it calculates the average center of the impact of all of those shots. And it gives you an average of the radius of all of those impacts. And so unlike extreme spread only measures 2 points. The farthest 2 points away. But when you're measuring by mean radius, you're factoring in every shot. So every additional shot gives you an additional data point. And while the mean radius was 0.33, a radius is half the distance of a circle. It's from the center to the edge. So if you were to double that number, that would give you a circle diameter of 0.66, meaning that the average group size for this group would be 0.66 inches, even though the extreme spread was 1.20. So we look at our next group, and this was 39.8 grains of powder, rated at 2,600 feet per second in velocity. And this group was a little more scattered. We had a 1.48 extreme spread. But again, if you look at the photo that I'm inserting on the left here, you'll see that your average point of impact is right here, which the point of aim is basically at the bottom of this circle. So your average point of impact is only about a half an inch off from that point of aim. And you've got a mean radius of 0.41. Again, if you double that, that's 0.82. So that means that your average group size would actually be 0.82 inches. We come down to our next group. We're shooting 40.2 grains, and that has an average velocity of 2,620 feet per second. The group was a little bit tighter. The average point of aim was right here at this spot. And so even though the group size was 1.27, the average mean radius was 0.47, which would give us an average group size of 0.94. Dropping down to group number 4. Now this is interesting here because, again, you look at the photo on the left, and your average point of aim is right here, again, where these vertical and horizontal lines meet here. But you see how we've got a number of shots clustered together. We've got a shot here, here, and here. So out of 10 shots, we have 7 that are clustered together extremely tight. So even though we had a 0.99 extreme spread, and that's measuring from this bullet hole to this bullet hole, we've got a mean radius of 0.24. And if you double that, that means your average group size was 0.48. So we're tightening up. And then looking at the last group size, we're shooting 41 grains with a 2,660 foot per second average velocity. We have a 0.87 extreme spread, but we have a 0.26 mean radius. Now, something unusual here is that you've got a group here of 0.99 and a group here of 0.87, but the group of 0.99 has a smaller mean radius than the group of 0.87. You would think that if the extreme spread of the group was smaller, that the mean radius would also be smaller. The difference, however, is though that we've got one flyer here, and so on your extreme spread, you go from here to here, and that gives you 0.87, but you see how these rounds are clustered here? They're a little more spread out than they are here. So here we had 7 rounds that were extremely tight, and so that gave us an average mean radius of 0.24 inches. But here we had 9 shots, even though they're all touching, they're more spread out. So that gave us a mean radius of 0.26. So if you're shooting 3-shot groups and 5-shot groups, you might want to consider going to a 10-shot group and measuring for mean radius. For that, I use the Hornady ballistics app. There's a link below where Hornady shows you actually how to use that app. It costs $5 to download, so that would be money well spent because that analysis tells you a whole lot more about your group than just extreme spread. Okay, so what are our takeaways here? The 39.4 grains shot pretty well with a 0.33 mean radius. The 40.6 shot pretty well with a mean radius of 0.24. And the 41 grains shot well also with a mean radius of 0.26. So the best performing load was 40.6 grains of powder. If you listen to the Hornady guys, they're going to tell you that if you really want to zero in on a good load, you need to shoot a large group. And they were saying a minimum of 30 rounds. Maybe do a comparison between 39.4, the 40.6, and the 41 and see how those perform. Maybe do a 20-shot group of each of those. So anyway, these performed pretty well in my rifle. Every rifle is different. I can't guarantee how they'll perform in yours, but I would think this would be a pretty good place to start at either 40.6 or 41 if you're going to be shooting that 140 ELD match bullet and H4350. All right, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. I always try to interact with everybody that comments. And thanks so much for watching.